Okay, got it. I'm going to give you my got it sign here. We are going.
Yes, Mark, welcome to Turning Pages, the
Mhm.
author of the Sober Chronicles. I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know how the Sober Chronicles came to be.
Well, I guess to describe myself, I am a person in long term recovery from alcohol and other things. I've been sober since November 14th, November 10th, November 10th, 2014. So I'm almost 10 years now. And I'm an author and a musician. I spent many, many years in Los Angeles as a studio musician in my 20s. Came home to Ohio and started a family, and those kids wanted to eat every single day. So I ended up in corporate America and started working for a lot of audio companies. And I was that guy who 2 to 3 times a week, 2 to 3 weeks a month for 24 years got on a plane. And so I traveled a lot and had a very successful career in the audio in sales in the audio industry. And my story really is it's a long journey of just step by step, slowly descending into the depths of the basement of alcoholism. And if you would have asked me when I was growing up, right, you want to grow up to be an alcoholic? No. I don't think anybody ever says, hey, you know what? I think I'll grow up to be a drunk. No one does. But I do know this because I'm trained by the state of Ohio. I'm a certified peer recovery supporter, which is a recovery coach. And so I do understand that some of us have a biological predisposition to alcoholism and substance use disorder in the same way that people might have it for I'm a type 2 diabetic. I didn't choose to do that. And my grandfather was an alcoholic but not a diabetic. My dad was a not an alcoholic and a diabetic, and I got both of them. And so there's a lot of things that modern science says are predispositioned by a biogenome, right? So, and then at some point, it became activated. A lot of people will say, well, it was your choice. Yeah, it was. I mean, my drinking had really three stages in it. The first stage was, this is fun, having a good time. I'm a kid playing in a band. Let's go, right? And then, the second stage was where, I was starting to notice, hey, I don't drink like everybody else, right? I call that stage two, where you start saying, what just happened, right? You wake up the next morning and where's my car? What happened? Why do I have a stack of ATM receipts on my dresser? What did I text? I said what last night to you? And those are the moments where you start realizing, oh, something's happened, you know, and of course, the third stage was me down on my knees, entering into detox and, finally able to say the words, please help me, which were the hardest thing for me to do because I grew up in a family where, I'm not going to get into that too much, but I pretty much was parentized, right? So I took care of myself. And, unfortunately, early childhood traumas and things like that just made me not want to need anybody else. I don't need you. I'm not asking for your help. I don't need your help. But what's interesting enough about people like that is that they're almost always the first person to help someone else, right? Almost always. And I've come to realize that's because they know what it feels like to need help. And that's why they help other people. And so, musician for many, many years, made a lot of records in LA, and came home and was working with a guy that was very, very notable in Northeast Ohio, and spent 25 years in his band, the Resonators, Michael Stanley and the Resonators. And I played on 23 of his records, and he helped me get a solo career started. So, I'd say about 10 years ago, when I began to become sober, I started realizing that I needed to change one thing in my life. Everything. So it became a mission for me to try and seek out and find, who I was, because I had numbed my emotions. I had done a very good job of disconnecting from everybody. I had this really great you know persona where you thought, oh, that dude's got it together. He's like, man, you got this. And the reality is I hated myself. I was a self-obsessed piece of what. And I just couldn't see it until I finally realized when I entered detox in June of 2014 that I was able to come into contact with some people that offered me the idea that what I suffered from could be a medical and a mental health disorder. And I wasn't a bad person. And that to me was a paradigm shift, because I realized then, wait a minute, if I'm sick, I can get treatment. I can get well. And it really took me, I mean, I'm leaving out a lot. I'm leaving out a lot. 3 trips to the ICU. I mean, you know what happens when a type 2 diabetic drinks straight vodka for 11 days? You're sick, right? You're sick. And, I just kept thinking, why can't I quit? Why can't I do this? I didn't understand the neuroscience of addiction. And that is that literally there's a part of your brain that takes over. And it's the same way that if you're in the desert with your kids and somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I'll give you a glass of water, but give me your kids, you're going to go, I'll give them the kids, but I'll get a drink and then I'll be okay. And I'll go get them and I'll do, and the reality is that people ask me all the time, how did you know? How did you know you had a problem? For me, it was two things, Mel. Number one, I would tell myself, I'm not going to drink today. And I couldn't not drink. Second one was once I started drinking, I couldn't control how much I drank. It was like the night was on. It was going to end the way it was end, falling down, you know,
So
or
you were a binge drinker.
I was what they called it in the beginning. I was diagnosed as a periodic, so I could go
Okay.
long periods of time, months, without drinking because I would get it together, man. I got it, and then I couldn't, and I would go off, really go off. In the latter years, I can remember that it would be sometimes, almost 10, 11 days of disconnecting, and really sick, really sick. And I think that's really was stage three for me, is,
Yeah.
down on my knees and not being able to fix it, not being able to fix myself. And that really was the shift for me, was realizing that I had a medical and mental health disorder.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you for, taking that step and getting help because you have kids. I read in the book that you were in the hospital and you were
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask you now, a lot of people, I want to say a few, but they're stigmatized by the word alcoholic. And you
Yep.
mentioned that in your book. Can you give
Yep.
us a take on that?
Yeah. So I always was uncomfortable, Mel, going to 12-step meetings and standing up and going, hi, I'm Mark, alcoholic, because I always felt that that was who I was, used to be, not who I wanted to be. And I also felt that it sort of objectified the the disease. So I'm very careful now to use person first language, which is I'm a person with, right, a disorder. I'm not my disease. I am not my disorder. I am like anybody. You ever heard any study say, "Yeah, I'm a cancer"? No, you're not. You're a person that struggles with an illness called cancer, right? I'm a person who struggles with an illness called alcoholism. So I use substance use disorder, SUD, because it wasn't just alcohol for me. I mean, I smoked weed for, you know, years and years. I mean, I started drinking and didn't like it in high school. I knew right away I didn't drink like everybody else because I would just go off. So I smoked a lot of pot. I mean, being a musician, that kind of was around. But again, in those days, the cannabis had such a low count of THC that it was almost to me like it was an antidepressant. and it was helped me deal with my extreme anxiety. I was afraid of everything all the time. It was diagnosed clinically as anticipatory anxiety. And I remember as a kid getting up to go to school and being totally freaked out. Like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? That carried through almost all of my life. And, I still struggle with that. I do. Yesterday, I was in a meeting and I had to give a slight presentation, say some things. My heart was pounding. But that's something I've come to learn is treatable, right? And I always wondered why it was I was so different than everybody else. But come to find out, guess what? I ain't special. You know what I mean? And when I joined a tribe of people who suffered from the same disorder as I did, I started seeing, man, there's other people just like me. And I think, I believe, by the way, in multiple pathways to recovery. I mean, 12-step groups, all that stuff, smart recovery. If it works for you, man, it's good. It's good. There is not one way up the mountain. Matter of fact, I get a little, I get a little PO'd when somebody tries to tell me that this is the way, this is what it is. It's kind of like one of those dudes on the street that stops you with those little cards that says that their form of religion is the only one. I feel the same way about people that are, self-confessed messiahs of recovery. It's like, no, dude, that doesn't work for everybody. It does not work for everybody.
Yeah, I actually have a issue with everyone saying that the 12-step program is the one all be all.
Yeah.
Um, I guess within my own research and study that it doesn't fit for everybody.
No, it doesn't. It
It
doesn't.
doesn't.
No,
And
no.
I've actually been to a AA meeting with a family member and as support. And I remember leaving there feeling depressed. I felt like I needed a drink
Yeah.
after,
Yeah.
and I felt like I also needed one of those cheese paste sandwiches that they were serving. Right?
It's crazy because AA meetings are very, very different. Like if you say to somebody, I'm a Christian, right? Well, you
Right.
could, I mean, how many flavors is that? Right. And you really do. I would suggest to the listeners and the viewers here that I would suggest that, it's not all good and it's not all bad. It's like, that crazy lady that's in church that sits in the front row that sings off key but wears coats in the summer. She's an AA too. I mean, but
Yeah.
she's also at the post office. She's also at Walmart. You're going to find people like that. But I do believe that there is a really positive benefit from a 12 step. And that was for me is the peer to peer support, being around other people that said, yeah, man, the most two important two words in recovery are me too. I get it, dude. I get you. Because people that, like you say yourself, you deal with a family member, most people don't understand what it's like really to go through that night after night and to feel that suffering and pain as you watch someone you love not be well, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so hard. It's like they have a disorder or a disease, but they won't take the medicine to get them well, or they
Yeah.
can't, and that's the hard part. But the 12-step groups for me, I think really, really, and I still hit meetings. I just feel like the best part of it is the peer-to-peer support. You see people, you help other people because literally for me, there were three things. I've got a license plate that says three things. And the first one is I'm not going to use today, no matter what. No matter what. I'm going to do everything I can to just today. What is it? Wednesday, October 23rd. I'm not going to drink or use today. That's it. That's it. The second one is I'm going to make sure that I'm connected to a group of people like me, who I can, reach out to and say, dude, I'm having a day. Can you talk to me for 30 seconds, and this thing has got under my skin or whatever. And the final thing, the third thing is that, once you get it, paint it back. Helping other people is the most meaningful part for me of recovery is to see, that words you can say that really make a difference to you. I mean, I've had people read my book or see me at a presentation because I do a music and message thing called The Sound of Recovery, where I take music and tell my story. I play guitar, which is a little different. And people will come up to me and say, "Hey man, I saw that and you said this one thing." And I don't remember saying that. But just like it happened for me, I can remember being in meetings where somebody said to me, everything is happening right on time, just not on your time, dude. It was like all of a sudden stuff made sense, right? Everything is happening right on time for the right reasons, just not on my time. Right. And so it was like, okay, little nuggets of things that I got in a group experience, that peer-to-peer support, which were really valuable to me. And plus, that first year, I mean, if you understand the neuroscience of addiction, you understand that the first few months are what's called you go through a period called post-acute withdrawal. And that is where your body starts to be well, but your brain isn't healed yet. And the neurotransmitters and all that stuff just isn't really functioning yet. It's like a short circuit. The best way to describe it to people is, like I'm a Mac guy. So, when you see that little beach ball spinning going, and you're not connecting with thoughts, that's what happened to me. Funny story is I was working as a corporate executive and we called my assistant, and this was maybe months after I had not been drinking. I had a sustained amount of sobriety, several months. And she said to me, "Mr. Shannon, are you aware you just called me 20 minutes ago to ask me those questions?" I wasn't. I wasn't, because my brain was skipping. It was skipping beats. And I had some cognitive memory issues, which, frankly, because of the amount of alcohol I used over the period of time I used, still happen when I'm under stress. You put me under stress, I can't remember stuff. I can't remember, you know?
Yeah, I'm aware of the brain thing because I also know alcohol is actually the most deadliest drug to come off of.
Man,
And people are not aware of that.
right.
So
Yeah.
um with my family member, he is a binge drinker.
Mm,
So, you know, my other family members would be like, why is he drinking beer after his binge, right?
yeah.
And I have to explain myself. And I'm like, I cannot abruptly take away this alcohol
Nope.
from him,
Nope.
right?
No.
Because
No.
there was an incident where the alcohol was abruptly taken off. And I'm not sure if it was the hospital. I'm sure they were informed that he was
Mm-hmm.
drinking and was an alcoholic. But what ended up happening, you're talking about the neurons getting
Yeah.
skipped,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he was released from the hospital. And his brain went back to a week prior to,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So he wasn't intoxicated, but was acting like it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Oof.
I was
Mm.
there and I was like tripping because I'm like, what on earth
That's scary stuff.
did that
Yeah.
happen?
It's
Right.
scary
And then
stuff.
of course, I went on Google and start researching it.
Right.
But
Right.
it's very, very hard. And I don't think people understand too that with especially with the alcohol addiction, it's not just something that you can just get up one day
No.
and just be like, hey, yeah,
Yeah.
especially
I've
if you are a chronic drinker for years, you know?
Right, right. I've come to understand that you really do need a landing period. When I work in detox wards, what is very commonly done is when people come in, they are put on a very heavy sedative, mostly phenobarbital, right? And then they slowly release them because no one can tell. I mean, if you ask an alcoholic how much he's drinking, I would have said, "Well, 2 drinks, 3 drinks." I didn't know. And unfortunately, we're also sometimes we don't present the truth accurately, right? We have a little issue with that. So when you get into a detox center, they hit you hard with a sedative and then release you from that so you don't have seizures, because your brain will look at that and go, wait a minute, I don't have that stuff I need. Freak out, right? And if you've ever seen somebody, and people ask me, well, what's that like? I don't understand it. I said, dude, give me your phone. Give me your phone, and I'll hold it for them for a while. And they're like, well, come on, you're going to give me it back, aren't you? No, I'm not. I'm not going to give it back. They're like, dude, really, you got to give me back my phone. I'm like, dude, see this feeling you're feeling right now? That anxiousness, that's what an addict feels when he can't get his drug. You know what I mean? And I asked them, how did you feel the last time you lost your phone, right? It's a panic, right? That is the same thing that's happening. There's all kinds of studies now that show that, the disorder of gaming disorder, that people are locking into sequences and patterns. How many times do you see people looking at their phone, right? Because this generation now, we're that is almost in a lot of ways given us the same dopamine response that a lot of drugs did. Okay. And people binge watch TV, binge eat. I've heard stories about people going to 6 or 7 fast food restaurants in a row. There's sexual disorders, there's gambling disorders. I mean, there's all kinds of this, and it all affects the same part of the brain that is affected by that dopamine response. And once you get addicted to it, you become desensitized to it, and you got to have it. So with an alcoholic, to interrupt the drug coming into the body without any sort of, planned cause for step down, that's a very dangerous thing to do. Very
Yeah,
dangerous.
it
Yeah.
is. It truly is. But with all the addictions that were coming up, the video gaming, the social media,
Yep.
I think a couple states even they want to ban TikTok because of how addictive
Oh
TikTok
yeah.
is.
Oh yeah.
Um, do you feel like that's also due to us not having human connection, not having quality relationships?
That's a really, really great question. That's a really great question.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I'm with a lot of writers and musicians a lot, and we talk a lot about, how our music impacts people. And one of the things that I think is so very important that is united by music or art is that people feel a sense of connection to it, right? I mean, how do you feel when that song comes on, that's your jam, right? Or you're with people at a concert and that music is played. But I think that we're more lonely now than we've ever been lonely. And I think that even though we're connected, we're all doing this with our phones, like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. But it's all boo, right? Because it's not
I'm
real.
laughing because I took a selfie like that before.
But I do it too. But
Yeah.
it's not. But I mean, we've learned, like, okay,
Yeah.
look, I mean, you're a person that's obviously getting into the media, getting into podcasts.
Yes.
You have to create content, right?
Hmm.
And among the music community, there's this sense that we're losing the musicianship because we have to spend half of our time creating content now so people notice us, right? And that is just the game right now. And unfortunately, I
Yeah.
see with a lot of I have a very close, very dear person in my life who's got a daughter, and I'm telling you, it's really hard for her not to compare herself to what she sees on social media, because now in her mind she's got to be that, right? And that's not
Mhm.
real. It's just not real.
Yeah.
And it really causes a tremendous amount of depression, tremendous amount of stress. You feel isolated, you feel lonely. And here's the other thing is that I've noticed about social media, because I probably rode the river a little longer than you, I'm a little older, is that this sense of loneliness is just so overwhelming,
It's an
and
epidemic for sure.
and the I think I read this book early in recovery. It was by a guy named Johann.
Lost connection.
Yeah, and really what he said is, he
Hmm.
said the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connected,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Being connected. So, and we're found that and again, this is an election year, so I have to talk about that, and I won't talk about politics, but I will talk about the process, right? That we are made to join teams. It's us against them. It's we against them. They're bad. They're bad. We're good. They're bad. We're good. It's another opportunity to separate us. And that, in my mind, is what's probably creating a lot of the loneliness, because a really interesting study that I read recently is that people, especially with the political process, people will believe their friends more than they believe the facts. They can be presented with facts that are proven, but if their friends or their social group says, no, that ain't so, that ain't so, there's this,
Persuasion.
yeah, they'll believe their friends.
Yeah.
You know why? They want to be connected to a group of people to be validated, right?
Right.
And facts don't validate, but friends do, right?
Yeah.
And so it's that loneliness that people feel. And one of the reasons why this political campaigns that are getting so much attention now is people are feeling a sense of belonging by joining a side, you know, and that's pretty significant and important. But we are lonely, more lonely now than ever, more than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
read that book. It was a really it was an eye opener. And I actually read
Yeah.
the book because I myself was in a state of depression and feeling lonely.
Mm.
And I don't know, medication doesn't seem to
Yeah.
inspire me,
Right.
right? And I would
Right.
never say to anyone, don't do it, whatever. You need to choose your path of what works
Right.
for you,
Right. Right.
you know? So that book was really insightful because, you know, a lot of times too, we're stuck in our heads about thinking, worrying about the future and the job and this and that,
Oh,
whatnot.
yeah.
And he had an example in the book of I think the girl, the woman that went to do gardening
Hmm.
with a community. And I think there was another one where I'm not sure if it was this book or another book where she started working. She wasn't actually in a psych ward and she started working with animals, but that was her passion. And all of a sudden, she just started to feel really connected because once you're also purposeful, I think a lot of people don't
Yeah.
feel needed,
Right, right.
you
And how do we
know?
feel? How do we feel purposeful? I think most of us, or for me, I do when I'm just helping somebody out,
Yeah.
lifting them up, just or just calling somebody and saying, hey, there's a lot of talk about the blue zones now and why people live to be so old. One of the primary reasons, beside what they eat, is how they socialize, right?
Yes.
They socialize, they do things, they garden, they get up and they exercise, and that's movement, right? That's important.
Mm.
They eat different foods than people who don't live as long. But one of the key components, and I think, and I don't know where you're from, but are
Well,
you,
I'm Canadian, but I'm currently in
I
Trinidad.
know, I hear the elongated O's there, right?
Yeah,
I
I'm
hear
Canadian, but I'm currently in
yeah.
Trinidad.
Oh, I heard you hang out that O. But
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that there's a community in California called Loma Linda, and and it's based on Seventh Day Adventists who, aside from the religion, they have this practice of socialization and practice of communal eating, which is what did most of our grandparents do every single day? They had a family meal, right? You sat around the table. This was before television, was a thing. It might have been on in the other room, but I can remember my grandparents, you know what I mean? It was, that sit down dinner time. That was important. That was really important. So I think we've lost a lot by not having that ability to have those communal experiences. People used to go to church a lot too, and for whatever reason they were still hanging out with other people, right? There was a tribe there where they felt and they belonged, right? And I don't know about you, but I really have to struggle to find people I belong with now, and here's the other
Same
thing
here.
that's easy. It's it seems like social media has made our relationships so transactional, right? Like,
Yes.
okay, I'm done with them, I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't have to work as hard with the negative side of building relationships, so you can just bail. Right? I'm out. That dude, that chick, whatever. And the reality is, that just is part of today's society. It's so transactional now. Um, where's the connectedness? How do you
Yeah.
stay connected? How do you do
But
that?
I don't know. I wish I knew because when I gave up drinking, I lost my social life.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Yep.
and it's been over, I think, 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as the months and years go by, it's gotten more and more lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, I've had moments where I'm like, should I just start drinking again?
Yeah. Well, I
Right?
mean, do I really
But
want
the thing is, honestly, it's not worth it for me,
to?
you know, and now it's not even like I would have a bad day and think, oh my gosh, it's Friday, let me have a drink. Like it doesn't even
Mm,
come into my head anymore. I'm
mm,
just like, okay, well, maybe I need to leave the country.
right, right. No matter where you go, a lot of I call it the WD-40, social lubricant of
Yeah.
making it easier, is alcohol. right? And I can remember very clearly before I got into the what I'm calling the third stage of drinking, where it was a relief to just get that first couple drinks, and then okay, now I can feel like I can talk to people and I can be myself and I can relax. And the problem is being an alcoholic, that two drinks turned into 12, right?
Mm.
And it was just not fun anymore. I didn't,
Mm. But you're a
wasn't,
musician, so that must have been really hard
you
for
know,
you.
I'm a very serious musician. I went to music school. So I can't say that I didn't ever use when I played, because there were times when the stakes were really low and I might have, like, it's just a whatever type of gig it was where there was no, I mean, nothing really on the prize side of doing the gig. There wasn't a record deal or just, I mean, a lot of what I call meat and potatoes gigs, like a bar gig, yeah, sure, I would drink in those days. But when it came to concert gigs where, record labels and all that stuff, I never was high when I played. I never was high when I recorded. But I will tell you, Mel, 1 minute after I was done, like you hear those people, like, one more, play one more. I was that guy giving you the fry because I wanted to get my gear packed and get out and start drinking, because I had a water bottle full of vodka underneath my front seat, right? And that was the little bottle that got me to the medium bottle that got me to the big bottle later on that night. So I wanted to bounce, man. And I did not want to do one more song. What do and I just immediately following the gig, I would do that, and all sorts of other types of behavior that are not acceptable to me in my value system now, which was basically driven by, you know, I mean, you can imagine, right? Just, when you're in a band, people, want to throw themselves at you because of what they think you are. People always say musicians always get all the girls. You don't get girls you want, you get girls that want you. Totally different thing. And I say, I say to women, I said, that creepy guy that's staring at you across the bar, right? That's the opposite of what musicians get. That kind of quiet, kind of sort of weird person that, they've heard every one of your songs, and that song, really means the most thing to you because you must have written it for them, and you're looking at them going, I don't know what you're talking about, but that's what it's like. And so for me, it's almost like a religious experience now to do art, and I can't possibly conceive of ever wanting to use any sort of substance that would create an altered state. It's just not authentic to me. It's just not. But the loneliness part, man, I mean, I got lucky because, and I tell people, I got married this year, and
Congratulations.
I have to tell you, Mel, people say to me, I mean, what's the secret? I said, I finally learned to love myself enough to
Yeah,
let someone else love me.
that's beautiful. That's
And it took a
incredible.
long time for me to
Mm.
accept my problems and looking in the mirror and seeing the way I didn't like the way I looked, or always holding myself up to a super high standard, or always thinking I wasn't good enough, or somebody else was better or cuter or smarter or richer or whatever. I was always that person that held myself such to a high standard that I finally had to find a way to let some of that go. Is it perfect? No way. I still do therapy. I mean, I've got a great therapist because my mental health is just as important as me going to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. Super important for me to maintain positive, positive movement in the mental health community, right? Because I fall back. I mean, I just, it's easy for me to sit in a room and go, yeah, you're not that good. Yeah, you suck. Yeah, I saw that picture of you, dude. You see how big your butt looked? You know what I mean? Or whatever I say to myself, right? That jacket doesn't fit. You know what I mean? Why'd you pick that? What's wrong with you? Right? This criticism, that voice in your head, which I think a lot of us have, and
Mhm.
social media accelerates that, because I look at social media and go, I can't compare. I can't. I'm
Yeah,
not that. I'm not that
yeah.
handsome. I'm not that rich. I'm not that talented. I'm not. I'm an right. And that's where the alcohol really served a purpose for me, is just smoothing that over. I could maybe forget for a while.
Yeah.
that was it. But unfortunately, it's a progressive disease, and it
Yeah.
doesn't stay the same without treatment. What is chronic turns progressive and
Yeah.
eventually fatal. You're looking at a person right now that has spent 3 trips to the ICU. 3. Okay. And one of the last ones was that passage in my book where my kids didn't even show up because you know what? I have to tell you, they had seen it before. And
When
they
I
had,
read that, I was at work and I was reading that. Sorry to cut you there, but I was at
no,
work and
it's
I
okay.
read. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's okay. I get
Oh,
it. That's tough for me to read what I wrote there too. Yeah.
yeah. When I read it, you see, I'm a daughter of an alcoholic, so I was like, ooh, like I'm like the thing talking about it now, and I could feel it in my chest,
Yeah. Yeah.
because at some point, um, being the child of an alcoholic, you become fed up
Yes.
and you're
And that's
tired and your
yes.
bones are tired, your soul is tired.
Yes.
And it's like,
Mhm.
please, and it's literally like you said earlier on, it's like watching someone with cancer and dying in front of you, and you have absolutely, no miracle prayer, no, nothing you can say or do at this moment could help them. And I guess part like reading your story, I'm like thinking, I'm like, I wish my dad would just click, you
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
wish he would just click. But when I could only imagine too, because I've read other books like the Realm of the Hungry Ghost. I've followed Gabar Mate talk about addiction and finding compassion because at one point I had hostility. I was like, why can't you
Yeah.
stop? Why can't you do
Yeah.
this? Whatever. And
Right.
it's
Right.
when I actually started studying it, I learned to have compassion, but some days compassion only goes so far.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Hey,
You know,
congratulations. Congratulations, you're a human being, right?
yeah,
And we are all to the place where, there is only so much compassion we have. We just get this compassion fatigue. I honestly have it now as a recovery coach when I'm working with somebody and I find that I'm more willing than they are to be sober. I really used to struggle with that early on when I was beginning to sponsor or help other people. And I had somebody say something more really, really important to me because I am a person who tries to help people in the community. They said to me, dude, every time you spend time on that person that doesn't want it, you're missing that guy over there that does.
mm,
Right. And so I just try to remember that there is a point, and I've had to do this. It's really hard where I say, I can't help you.
yeah,
I can give you some other names, but I can't help you. And that's happened to me with people that are very close to me. Um, I mean, you know, um, not DNA family, but other family. And I just said, dude, you can't call me at 2 o'clock in the morning anymore and ask for help. You need to call me at 7 a.m. in the morning to ask for help. You know, that's where
yeah,
it's got to start. When you're ready to call me and have a coffee with me in the morning and talk about it, I'm there for you. But not
yeah.
when you're drunk at 3 o'clock in the morning. Nope, you can't do it.
How is your tolerance around being around people that drink excessively or just drink on the whole? What's your
you know,
tolerance like?
Mel, shitty people are shitty people, right?
Yeah,
They just are. And when you put alcohol in them, they just become more of who they are, right? They just become more of who they are. And I've known that I didn't like drunk people when I wasn't drinking. I didn't like anybody that got in my face. You know what I mean? With that breath. Now, today, I've got a really good radar system. So
mm,
when I see it, I can avoid it. I just book out of there. I bounce. Right. And if somebody comes up to me a gig that's had too much to drink, I try to be polite. But I
mm,
also have people around me who know, people who work in my organization who know that if they see somebody bugging me, they will interrupt it quickly. They will come over and interrupt it. Hey, Mark, we need you to come over and do the thing or the thing and the thing. They've got social cues that get me out of that situation because everybody wants you to be Jesus Christ. Everybody. And I just don't have it, man. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I will tell you something that I've learned. I will learn. What the biggest difference between me and God is, or higher power? The biggest difference, guess what it is? My,
patience.
my higher power never thinks he's me.
Okay.
God never thinks he's Marc Lee Shannon,
Yeah.
right? Right. So, yeah, sometimes I have to remember I don't walk on water. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I fail so big by trying to help people. I fail so big in my own life and sometimes in relationships. It's just the human process. I mean, perfect form, 165 miles an hour right through the wall fail, right? But I can tell you that I can also forgive myself now. And that was the hardest thing. Buddha said the biggest difference between him and the people who followed him is he could forgive himself 100 times a day, right? And we don't. We see ourselves making mistakes, and I mean, I had after detox in June of 2014, I had three or four that I can remember one night slips. And every single time I got back up and I called my chemical dependency counselor and got in and got it and said, I messed up. And we worked on it. There's no perfection in this.
So
There's
that
no,
was you teaching yourself compassion for yourself during those times.
yeah, that and one of the things that I don't mean to, trust me, I'm not slamming on whatever works for you. But the
Mhm.
thing that I've always had the hardest time with is people who, when they have a relapse in a 12-step program, they go, "Oh, you got to go back to one." No, you don't. You did not lose any of that sobriety that you had. You did not lose it. Those are positive things. And I always
Do you think
have.
it because it gives you a failure mindset, like a failure
Yeah,
thing?
I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff
Mm.
about the 12-step programs. And I think the peer-to-peer support is the greatest. But I got to tell you, and I think probably I'm gonna get a lot of crap from a lot of my AA friends, but just going to meetings and reading a blue book and believing in a dude on a cloud with a beard and a robe didn't get it for me. It wasn't enough. I needed
You're not
early
alone.
Early on, I needed medication to deal with my depression and my anxiety. Going to meetings did not help my chemical imbalance. It was still there. And I had to get reset to zero. And that meant going on some meds and then gently, very softly over a period of time, resorting to stepping down from them. And now I currently don't take anything like that. But I will tell you that I needed to learn how to deal with the mental health side of my substance use disorder. And I'm afraid that oftentimes the mental health side isn't really addressed in traditional 12-step meetings. It just isn't.
Yeah, I can see that. I wanted to ask you, when you decided to stop, um,
Mm,
obviously everybody has like a daily routine, which will probably trigger them to use.
right.
Did you do anything intentionally to
Yeah.
change your routine?
When I got out of detox, I couldn't sleep. And it was a pretty serious sleep disorder because one of the things I don't talk about very much is that I had developed a very serious addiction to sleeping pills. Lunesta Ambien for about 6 years, almost every night, most nights, I was taking something to help me sleep, to help the anxiety, because I had this fear that I wouldn't be able to sleep. So I would take something and then drink and then wake up in the middle of the night and couldn't sleep again. I could fall asleep but not stay asleep. So I had a pretty significant, severe sleep disorder. So that was a real problem for me. So in the early days, what I did was there was a meeting at 6:45 in the morning at St. Thomas Hospital, and I would go there. It was called morning meditation, and it saved me because I just needed to get to that meeting. If it was 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, I could say, okay, I just got to get to there. But I was introduced to a concept called thought replacement therapy by my counselor, Patty, and she said to me, the human brain can't process more than one thought at a time. And she goes, when you wake up and you have this anxiety, get up, get out of bed. And we created for myself a little safe zone where it was downstairs in my house. I would light a candle. I would sit in a chair. I would make a coffee. I would have nice mood lighting on, and I would read something. And sooner or later, within a few moments, that fear and that anxiety it usually took 3 to 4 to 5 minutes, but it would go away because I would wake up just freaking panicked with anxiety in the middle of the night. But that thought replacement therapy where I would get up and go somewhere to a safe place I had designed that was comfortable, cool cinnamony like candle or vanilla candle, you know what I mean? Nice lighting and a cool spiritual motivational book. And I can't tell you how many times I fell asleep in that chair because I got myself relaxed. But sitting in bed, ruminating and marinating on all
Mhm.
the fear thoughts I had, that was did not serve me well. So that was a big change I had to do in early recovery and getting to that meeting to get the day started, because I just was so afraid all the time. I was so afraid I would relapse because more than anything, I just wanted to be a good dad, right? I really just wanted to be that person that, you know, could be a good role model, and my kids had, my middle child, he had seen me fall down the steps. I mean, there's a video on YouTube of me playing a concert in front of 25,000 people, and that guy's got broken ribs from falling down the steps the night before. And I told everybody I had such great lies. I was so creative. I was carrying laundry and I had the newspaper and a cup of coffee, and I fell, oh, boom, 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 boom. Bullshit. I was drinking and I passed out and fell down the steps, you know, and was at the bottom of the steps when I was found, you know, and that kid, I'm never going to be able to take that memory out of his head. And I will tell you the positive side of that is that a couple years later, you know, my son who had witnessed me being taken by EMS into the emergency ward, taken, passed out, he said to me, we finally talked about it in a car, and I can remember I was dropping him off someplace, and he started crying. He goes, "Dad, they told me you might not make it that time," and he started crying, and I will never be able to describe the feeling I had of how I made him feel. The good part of the story is about a year and a half, almost 2 years later, he said to me, "Dad, I don't worry about you anymore. I think you got it this time." For a long time, I couldn't say that story without getting choked up. But that gift was probably one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given in my life, is having my child say to me, he didn't worry about me anymore. Now, they know I'm strong. They know I'm involved in the community, and I work really hard to try to help others because for me, and I know it's probably not the right way to look at it, but it works for me, is that I just imagine, those great big erasers you had in grade school, there were those like this big and shit, so for me, every time I help somebody else, I just feel like I take that eraser out and I erase a little bit of the shame that I have, right? Because I will never be able to take that memory away from my child. He will always have it. And even though today he knows I'm good, that's part of his DNA. I made that happen, and I'm responsible for that. And I still struggle with that now. You can probably tell by the tone of my voice.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah,
But
that's hard.
and I'm sober almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
I don't ever think about drinking, ever. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I mean, I see people drinking and I'm just kind of mildly amused by, dude, that used to be you. That used to be,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel when you see people that are inebriated? It's a different thing, isn't it? Once you
It
quit.
is, to be honest with you, well, currently where I am at is the Caribbean, and
Mhm.
the culture is it's a drinking culture.
Yeah, sure. Of course it is.
So yeah, so when I go out, I usually feel out of place because I'm the only one that's not drinking.
Right. Mhm.
Um, Majority of the time. And then
Yeah.
I can't be around alcohol. I don't want to
Yeah.
be around alcohol. And,
Right. Right.
I'm also like single, and I said to myself, I'm like, I'm sorry, I just don't want to date anybody that drinks.
No.
Like,
No.
because I don't even want it in my house.
Right. Right.
So I'm
Right.
like, I,
Right.
I don't want that.
Right.
You mentioned the word shame just now.
Mm.
Um, alcoholics or addicts in general, there's a lot of shame tactics that are used in rehab and recovery, but there's also a lot of shame attached to just being an addict. So sometimes when you're coming, wanting to get help, or there's sort of like this sh almost like a blanket of shame
Yeah.
on it,
Yeah.
you know? Just from my personal experience, when I decided to stop drinking and like going online, online has a ton of free support, Twitter,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, all that
hmm
stuff. But I
Yeah.
remember when I wanted to talk about it because I saw that, a lot of things were being advertised and geared towards women shoving the drinking down their throat. And I was like, I almost felt a sense of shame about even though using the word sober, that
mm
I'm sober
mhm.
until I got over it because it was in my head.
Right. Right.
But,
Right.
what are your thoughts on that?
You know, um, I tell people all the time, you really have to measure the company you're with, because for me to say I'm sober really sometimes makes people really uncomfortable. Like, what if I'm playing a gig in a bar? I'm not going to tell people, "Hey, dude, everybody, I'm sober," because you know what people are going to do? They're going to go, "Well, it doesn't make me feel comfortable. I'm out." Right. But I will tell you that I have coached people to use different language. And because let me tell you something, what you do is nobody's business. What you do, how you treat yourself, how you self care is no one's business. And I tell people, if you're going to be someplace where people are going to be going hard, right, like a party or something, go early, park down the street. You shouldn't necessarily have to feel like you have to deprive yourself of that. But when you're uncomfortable, yeah, just 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 bounce, And in clubs, obviously you have to be very careful with your drink, that, right? But I just say to people, what I did at the beginning, especially in my corporate life when I was starting, I would ask the bartender, I would go to the bartender and say, "Dude, look, don't drink. I'm sober, but I need to keep a cover tonight." And you would go, "Club soda with a lime looks like a vodka drink." And you can hold it all night long. And people say, "Another one?" No, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm doing good. I'm pacing myself. You can lie your ass off, because no one has a right to tell you what you need to do with your body. And I tell people this all the time. That's bullshit, right? If anybody tries to make you drink, you know what I mean? Then that says a lot about that person, doesn't it? It says a lot about that person. And I think that I'm more aware of now people's intentions, because of when I go out, you know what I mean? And they don't know me. They're like, "Dude, I can remember early on, um, the theory where I had a friend who was a guitar player, as a friend of mine, and we used to get together and we'd do the thing, right? And then afterwards, I told him, "Dude, I'm not drinking right now. I'm really, it makes me bad." He goes, "Yeah, okay, cool, dude, but listen, man, I got the dank weed. Come on, let's go, man. Let's smoke that way." And be like, "Dude, I'm not gonna smoke weed." "No, what are you talking about, man? It's not alcohol. It's not." I said, "Dude, listen to me," and I use these three words, which are very powerful. "Listen, please help me. I don't want to drink. It makes me not well. So please help me." And anyone, Mel, anyone that wants to drink with you after you ask them, "Please help me," you need to cut out of your life right now. Gone. Gone. Because sometimes you have to trim the dead branches to grow the new ones. You really
Mm,
do. But anybody, after you say to them, "Dude, please help me," it doesn't work for me. It doesn't make me well. It makes me sick, and I don't like the way it feels. Please, please, please help me. I don't want to drink tonight. You know, I can't tell you how many bartenders I said that to, and they lit up and go, "I got you.
mm,
I got you." Because they know, man. They know. And so anyone that wants to purport a behavior that you've asked them almost down on your knees not to do, they're out, out. They're out of my life. And I've had it happen. We're
yeah,
like, come on, dude, you got one drink, you could have one drink, and one drink.
yeah,
I'm like, "No, dude, I can't, because it doesn't make me well. It makes me sick. I don't
yeah.
like it. I don't like it." You don't have to say nothing about I got a problem, I'm alcoholic, I'm sober. Bullshit. You don't have to do it. You don't have to tell anybody, nobody's business
Yeah.
what you do for your self-care. It's nobody's business. Now, if your family, and I'm what I mean by family, and this is my definition of family, people who show up at 2 o'clock in the morning when there's broken glass or metal on the highway, that's family. People
Yeah.
that show up when you say, please help me, that's family, right?
Yeah.
And it's not always DNA, man. It's not
Yeah.
always
It's
DNA,
true.
right? You know, but when you're around family, I think it's different to be able to say, I'm sober. I don't drink anymore. And you know what? I'm happier. I'm better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anybody that loves you is going to go, yeah, bravo, man. But it's that culture of, come on, all the kids are doing it. You got to do it. Come on, all the kids are doing it. You're not fitting in. It's another example of that coercion to belong to a tribe that maybe is not your tribe, right?
Yeah.
So you don't need that. You don't have to do that, and
Yeah.
it's hard at the beginning and then you get stronger. It's like doing push-ups. Nobody, it's in my book, nobody can do 50 push-ups right away, but you can do one, then next day two, next day five. The first push-up is the essence of wellness. And once you start pushing away from people who don't serve you, you're going to find it gets easier and easier and easier. And the thing I will tell you about what I've heard you say right now, and again, I don't know you that well, and
Right.
again, I'm just a recovery coach. I'm not a physician, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, but I can tell you that when you set out to do other things to help people, all of a sudden the universe starts attracting people to you. And
Yeah.
I found that the person I became when I started helping other people started attracting the people that I wanted in my life. They
Hmm.
really did. And it really pushed away the people that I didn't need. But
Yeah.
volunteerism, working in areas where you're helping other people, all of a sudden you're a magnet for people and you draw them in and they do
Yeah.
come to you. They do, the universe brings them in. They do.
Yeah.
And I've seen that time and time and time again. And it really, if there's one thing that I would tell you, because I am an empath, so I do feel and sense things from people. The one thing I would tell you is it's right there in front of you. It is right there. You just have to get out of your way. Just go get it. Just go get it. And you'll find it. And I think you know in your heart what makes you sing, what makes your heart sing. You know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I can sense from you. If you follow that, you will find the people you want. The most important thing I can tell you is that if you want more of what you want in life, you have to be more of who you are. It'll come to you. It
Yeah.
comes to you. I have the life I always wanted,
That's
always wanted,
amazing.
you know,
Yeah.
and it took some big steps. Now, is it perfect? Hell no. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, the 2 a.m. people knocking on the door, red lights flashing, rain storms, kids wanting $20. Tell me, life is still life. But I can tell you that when I started making choices that served myself, then I started drawing in people that were like me. More of who you are. If you
Yeah.
it will bring you more of what you want. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And what you're doing now with this podcast and reaching out to help people, that's a step. That's a wonderful step. And I would imagine, although I don't know this for a fact, that this is not the only place where you seek to help other people and to find discovery.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Because
Yeah.
people like us, Mel,
Yeah.
it's what we do. It's what
Hmm.
we do. That's our tribe. That's our tribe. I already know you're probably more than 10 miles away from me, but I already know that if we were sitting in the same room, immediately we'd say, yep, we're in the same tribe. We know
Yeah.
we are. We are.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to attract in your life.
Yeah.
I think you just bring those people in.
Yeah.
Do they piss you off? Oh, yeah, they do. You know what I mean? Do people let you down? Congratulations, they're human beings,
Yeah.
but I think that we need to build when we build our new lives on who we really want to be. We have to surround ourselves with people that serve us well. You know,
Yeah.
I'll bet you're thinking of a couple of them right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
People that really serve you well, right?
Yeah.
And if you want things in your life like a life partner,
Mhm.
you have to ask for it. You have to
Yeah.
ask the universe. You get up every day. I used to get up every morning and say, I would open my actually a very wise spiritual person told me to do this and it really served me well. Open up your arms every morning and say, I'm open to all great things.
Yeah,
Bring them
because
in.
it opens up your heart
I'm
space.
open to all
Yeah.
great things, you know.
Yeah.
Come on, bring them in, you know.
Yeah.
And then they start coming, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have to tell you that you just life to me, what I've come to understand is it's a long river, right? And you never know what's up ahead. But the essence of Buddhist teaching with mindfulness is to be aware of where you sit in the boat on the river at this moment, right?
Mhm.
Can we predict the river and the rocks up ahead or the bends? No, we cannot. Can we go back and re-row what we did before? No, we cannot. But we can be here, right now. And I think that in early recovery, one of the biggest challenges for people is they're so worried about what's gonna happen, right? I mean, you could have taken a magic marker and written it
Oh,
across the top of my head. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? I was so frightened.
yeah.
But if I would, if I could get into a time travel Uber and go back and talk to that guy, I'd say, be here, be here now, be there in your life now, and enjoy that moment. Be mindful of what's happening right here, right there in your life. And it all means something. I have to ask you a question. How did you get to where you are right now? I mean, how did you end up in the country you're in? I mean,
How
yeah,
well,
that's a story, I'm sure.
yeah, it's a story. It was actually after my divorce.
Mm,
I was going through a separation and it was pretty bad. And, so I came down here and my father is the only one that I have here.
mm,
My everyone else, my sisters and mom are in Toronto.
hmm.
And I decided, okay, I come here and stuff like that. I particularly don't like it. I don't like the culture and stuff, but I've
Yeah.
stuck with my dad throughout the decade and
Mm,
stuff like that. So that's why I ended up here. But, as we're speaking, I guess looking back on it, maybe the journey was for me to break this generational addiction,
mm,
because I feel like at one point I felt like I was probably going down that road.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's how I ended up here. And now I'm ready to like leave. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's got to be tough when you feel like you are the lifeline for a person in your family that's so significant and important. It's a great responsibility, you know.
Yeah.
But who's taking care of you?
Me.
There you go. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
All of us on this planet have a fundamental responsibility to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't rescue anybody.
Yeah.
We can't. You know, we can love
Yeah.
them. We can love them, and we can set boundaries and let them know we love them, and we will love them no matter what. But there
Yeah.
are boundaries in my life, and I also have an ex-wife, and you know, anything you put X in front of anything, right? But I do know that I've learned that, you know, there are times when the right boundary can really be the right thing. It really
Oh,
is.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
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 And you know, I just have a sense for you that your journey is going to bring you everything you want.
Thank
Just
you,
remember,
Mark.
you have to be more of who you are.
Yes.
Forget
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that sometimes is really not easy. I used to wear a suit every day for years and years and years, and I'm still involved in some some community things that are pretty responsible people involved, right? And
Mhm.
I walk in looking like a musician, and they're like, "What's this guy? What's his deal?" And I'm like, I don't care because this is who I am. This is who I am, you know. And you have to be able to say, you know what, I do love myself. I do love
Yeah.
myself. All the faults, right? All the pooches and pouches and all the stuff that I don't want, or failures or mistakes or holes in the wall or warts or whatever. We're all human beings. Everyone has it. No one doesn't know. No one has
Yeah.
it. And if you're in
I,
show business, you get a really good sense of how good that deception is with Hollywood and stuff.
yeah,
Mm.
because when I Googled, I was Googling authors on sobriety, and
Mhm.
when I came across your book, and then I went onto your page, I'm like, wait, hold on a second. Am I missing something? How's this working out? This musician is sober?
Right.
So I was doing a bit of judging, on
No,
my
no, no,
stuff, and
no.
I'm like, then I went through your Instagram, and I'm like, oh, he's rocking it out. Like, this
Yep.
is serious. Like, this
Yeah.
is possible. You could
Yes.
be cool and be sober, but a
Yes.
lot of people are not given that image though,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
You know what's changed a lot is there's a lot of us out there. There's a lot
Yeah.
of musicians that are sober, but it's you have to be careful talking about it because unfortunately, some people who have gotten themselves into trouble have used that path to sobriety to sort of get them out of hot water. Like, no, 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 I'm sober now, I'm sober now, or I'm California sober, or I don't drink, but I do this and I don't do that, I don't eat meat, and I'm this and it, or whatever. But I mean, there's a lot of disingenuous people out there that try to portray themselves as being something that they're not, especially in show business.
Okay.
But I can tell you, there's an awful lot of friends I know that are sober. They just don't talk. It just doesn't
Okay.
matter. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think you would be surprised the amount of people that are out there that are sober that you don't know are sober. And they just don't. I mean, Eminem, right? How
Mhm.
long how long has he been sober? Long time.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, just in every walk, in every arts, Anthony Hopkins, one of the greatest actors, in my opinion, has been sober for 30, 40 years, right?
Mhm.
And you reach a point where you say, this makes me sick. I'm not going to eat it. Like you have an allergy to peanuts.
Yeah.
Who in the right mind would eat peanuts if they have a peanut allergy, right? Who would do that? And I know that substances, substance use disorder, marijuana, any of that stuff, alcohol makes me sick. It makes me sick. And I'm just not going to do that. I don't want to be sick. I want to be well.
Yeah. At some point, your spirit tells you we've had enough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
hopefully you can make that change.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, thank you so much
Well,
for
thank
your
you so much.
time.
Yeah, and
It was,
I
go
just want
ahead.
to say that I'm celebrating 10 years of being sober in November. And on November 10th, Amazon will release a updated version of Sober Chronicles with new photos and some a couple different new comments, but a brand new cover. And just it's a celebration of the fact that we have to continue to reinvent ourselves. But I do want to leave you with one thing.
Hmm.
Okay. So, and this is something for all of our viewers out there who want to understand what sobriety means to me. Okay. So, see what this is? It's a pencil, right? Now, this is a really useful tool, but something has to happen to it in order for it to work. Guess what that is? You got to sharpen it, right? So, every time I write a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, guess what I got to do? Sharpen it again. Now, I would imagine if this pencil could feel, putting it in a group of blades would be kind of hard, wouldn't feel that comfortable. But you have to go through that discomfort to get the sharp edge, right? The other thing about this pencil that I really like is the other end. This is really great because you can use it to erase. And I think of this in my life as, I could use this to erase my mistakes and turn them into lessons, right? I know that if I go to a party when people are partying hard, that's not the place I belong. I know if I'm hanging around with people that don't serve me well, it does not serve me well. I've made those mistakes and now they're lessons. So that's what this pencil. And the final thing that this pencil represents is after you get it, sharpened and you get the erase of the mistakes, you can use it to rewrite your story. We can never, ever go back and change the things we did, but we can always start now and change the ending. You can always start now and change your ending. And that's what I want to leave for our guests and our viewers here. And thank you so much for having me. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at Marc Lee Shannon at Gmail, and I will answer you. I really will. So cool.
Okay.
And please
Thank
stay
you.
in touch.
And
Please stay in touch.
I
Okay.
will stay in touch. I just wanted to ask you one thing. Is there a book or anything that has inspired you throughout your life and throughout your journey, your sober journey? Is there
Wow.
one particular thing? One.
I have to tell you, there's been many, many books, but speaking from the sense of a spiritual nature,
Hmm.
and speaking of sense of my true honesty, I have to tell you that I began reading Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, about a year ago, and I cannot stop it. And his, if I've got it on audio tape, and
Mhm.
it's not just for musicians, it's about life as being an act of creativity. And that Rick Rubin book and the things that he talks about are probably the one of the most influential books. I keep it really by my bedside and I listen to it all the time because it really has so much truth to me in it. And truth is hard to find. So
Yeah.
good luck to
I
you.
look at life as art.
Yeah,
So
it is.
yeah.
We're all creative people. We're all
Yeah.
creative beings. So good luck to you. And listen, stay in touch. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your podcast.
Great. Thank you so much. And we will stay in touch. I will message you when the um it's going to be uploaded. It takes me about a
Yeah.
week to
Yep.
edit. I've
Yep.
already done your cover
Okay.
and your thumbnail already. So
Hmm.
that's the easy part. But I would what I will do on my end though is I would do a post for the anniversary of the 10-year
Yeah.
when it comes out on Amazon, and I'll put it up on my feed too,
Thank
just
you.
to promote the book as well. And thank you so much for your
Thank you
time
so
and your
much. Thank you so
story.
much. And if you send me your address, I'll send you an autographed copy. Okay. Sound
Okay,
good?
great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And you know what? Bless you on your journey. I hope you find many, many people to ease your path.
Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot. All right.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.